Hey YouTube, this is Zach with Achilles Financial, and today I'm talking about a space-related company that is going public via SPAC, and that is Black Sky, and they are going public through Osprey Acquisition Corp. And this is a really cool company, and you can tell that it's very intense because the front page has this guy staring at us very intensely, knowing that this may actually be a really good investment. So I've been combing through the investor presentation. We'll walk through that momentarily. But this company I just already find fascinating. And the reason for that is because they are, again, in the space area, but they already have a working product. They have a huge pipeline. They've got money coming in the door. Still overvalued. All that being said, I think this company has a little bit shorter of a putt to make before they actually have to reach some of the valuation. So just in terms of what they do, the big thing is going to be satellite imaging. So whether that is cyber or whether that is security based, whether that is based on identifying new resources, it is a very, very cool company. So you can kind of talk about it. Again, it's how can we use their satellite imagery, and they talk about intelligence offerings. I think that's a big deal. Everyone uses Google Maps right now, and if you actually scroll in on Google Maps, you can often see imagery from years ago, other points in time. How cool would it be if you had the capability to have that in real time? And so that's a huge deal. I mean, you think the defense industry, if you think of even home security, there's a lot of really cool capabilities that you can use this software for, whether it's identifying new natural resources, whether it is bringing people from one place to another in a more intelligent manner. A lot of really cool capabilities. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to click this investor relations tab, and we are going to be heading over to the investor presentation. So we are at the investor presentation. As you can see, this came out incredibly recently, I believe as soon as today. So this is all very new, very exciting, and we need to be checking out this company. So again, you can access this PowerPoint. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. Everything you see here is just my opinion. Do your own due diligence. So let's dive in. Again, everything in here, forward-looking statements. Yes, yes, yes. The big thing that we want to talk about is this company is coming public at a pro enterprise value of $1.1 billion. I like that because this is a little bit less than what we've been seeing from some of these other companies that we've had. However, keep in mind that we do still have a smaller pool that we're pulling from. So they raised $180 million of PIPE commitments. So these are the shareholders that we basically have access to through the deal. The big thing, though, is that they are going to have right at $318 million in the pot to where they can draw from. Again, you see some of these people who are included in the process. There is a lot of capabilities to basically go forward with a lot of the same leadership, which you always like to see that. The biggest thing that on this page I want to highlight, and I'll highlight it again later, is 25% of the SPAC is going to be owned, or 25% of the company is going to be owned by the SPAC holders. So that is a huge deal. Again, let's focus on that. The company we looked at yesterday, AI, they only had 8% for the SPAC, 10% to the overall SPAC and founder shares. This, we're looking at 25%, which already I like a lot because it shows that they're not just looking at this as a cash grab. So let's talk a little bit about the company. As always, what we're going to be looking at here is the capability to invest in a company that is looking to make it big in space. That's the buzzword right now. I think satellite is a much better margin play than someone like a Blue Origin or a Virgin Galactic who's looking to fly people into space. Again, limited marketplace here and lower margins. But what we're looking at here, the reason there's so much emphasis on the space industry right now is because Cathie Wood's created, or is in the process of creating, her new space ETF. And what we're looking at here is this company someone that may be added there? I think what we may see as they continue to add some of these other companies is that as they continue to build that portfolio and see what could go there, you may see companies like HOL, HOL for Astra, or even something like SPCE with space may be imported into that company. Space I'm not as excited on. this one a little bit more. So let's talk about the company. As expected, I'm not going to go in depth onto the capabilities of the company from a product perspective because I'm not an expert there. We're going to dive more into the financials. But the big thing that you have here, again, a first mover. The big key here is real time. Again, anyone can go onto Google Maps and pull up a picture of where they're at, or even the flight simulator tying into Google Maps using Microsoft's engine. You have a lot of information from a mapping. This is really the, hey, we are looking at this today. And the big goal behind this is, again, 2020 is now in the past. So they had $22 million in revenue. They're expecting to have $46 million this year. This is the number that we're going to be watching. And then again, you see 114 to 23, huge growth. Again, you can see some of this right now is very exciting because these are some huge, 40, 50, 100% type of metrics when we're talking about the compound annual growth rate. The other thing that we want to highlight here is the big margins come into play as you scale up. So I think that that's a big deal because as those companies begin to scale, as those relationships begin to scale, you don't need more satellites out there. What you actually need is more customers using those satellites. The big thing that they have here is they say that 1.7 billion in their pipeline. Pipeline just means what they are looking to close. It has no correlation to what they will actually close, but 85% or approximately 85% is from existing customers. That's a huge deal because it's a lot easier to upsell a current customer as opposed to going out and finding new ones. So this is 1.7. That's the sum of all of this info right here. I anticipate if it is a good product, if they are good at what they do, then these latter years, this number grows to be much larger. I think the big thing that you'll see right here is that government agencies is where there is a lot of capability. If we talk about some of the people who are in the top spaces, I really like Brian O'Toole from a background. I looked him up on LinkedIn. The big thing that I like about him is, again, he was involved in GE Aerospace, and that was a very profitable business line at a point in time. What we don't see right now is he didn't really have any leadership roles in those positions. So I think that we're going to have to see, hey, how does the company perform? How does he communicate over the ensuing 12 months? So that's what I'm going to be looking at. The rest of the team, again, not any big history components, I would say, but I still like the potential here. So that's what I'm going to be watching at going forward is this team that we have here on the screen, the group that's going to make this a multi-billion-dollar company, as opposed to one that is bringing in 20 million in revenue and saying that they're worth 1 billion. So that's what we're going to be watching. So here's what they're looking at is, again, basically take that satellite imagery cost, lower it, and then make it recurring revenue. That's the big thing that we'll be watching as we go through the process. So here's just some of the capabilities that they are looking to utilize to make them more profitable. Again, event detection. Think of that from like a natural disaster perspective is going to be a huge capability where you can appropriately provide adequate resources to different government industries, private industries and government entities to make sure that you can get aid to the appropriate people. The other thing that I would highlight here on the routing prediction, they're talking about from the perspective of airplanes in that particular kind of time stamp right there. But even if you think of shipping industry, to make sure that ships are getting in and out of port at appropriate time periods, but also from a trucking industry, and think even if you are utilizing a autonomous vehicle and have that be able to tie into this type of industry, the possibilities are endless. For that reason, I think a company like this could have more success being able to tie in with another larger company, because I do see what they do. One of the risks is that they could have copycats, such as Amazon designing their own fleet of satellites to be able to do this exact same thing. So again, this is what they're doing. They're basically pulling all of this data out from this active monitoring, which, to be fair, some of the active monitoring is a little worrisome. I mean, they can be watching you, but I'll take my tinfoil hat off for the rest of the presentation because at this point in time, not too worried about that, but they're going to be able to provide real-time actions associated with it. So here's some of the capabilities going forward. you see in here that they're looking to work with some of these other companies. And I don't know if I would say that they're directly tied into the same grouping. I don't know if I would say that 2025 Black Sky is going to work with all of these companies there on the right-hand side, but they're definitely in the space, and it's something that we want to watch and be aware of to see how do they tie in with some of these other companies. So as you can see what we're looking at here, they identify a series of competitive advantages. I'm not familiar with the space to be able to make a opinion on this, but I do think that it's pretty important that they identify it. So right now what they're looking at, they are in the growth space. So what you're looking at doing is how do we ensure that our companies that we currently have, our customers, are adequately getting a appropriate service and they like the product. If they can grow from 22 million all the way up to 546 over the next 5 years, that is a huge deal. I also think that in 2021, if they can deliver on the 100% increase in revenue to 46 million, that will also be a huge deal that we wish to see. Some of the capabilities that they have from a customer perspective, I do think is going to be military. You can see some of those on the right-hand side of the Army, the Air Force, and whatever the Defense Innovation Unit is. There is a lot of capability to tie in with a lot of these government entities because government money is huge. You can see some of that total contract potential for 630 million, and I think that's a huge deal as well. There is a lot of money in these capabilities. So I'm going to continue to scroll through some of these just because, again, I want to focus on some of the financials that we'll find here. As you can see, again, the goal is to get to 75% gross margin and 45% EBITDA. That is not what they are in today. So this is something that we want to basically highlight going forward is, are they able to make sure that this growth happens? Can they execute? If we talk about what they're looking to do, they're, again, some of the imagery, data analytics, engineering. I think they're talking about imagery, but I think even some of this software and data analytics going forward is going to be a big deal later on in the future. Right now, the imagery, though, is definitely a high margin because, again, once that satellite's up there, I don't know what the maintenance cost on a satellite is, but I can't imagine it's going to be huge. It's basically just make sure it stays up in the air until it dies. So when we talk about the growth opportunities here, they expect to have gross profit in 2021. They expect to have profit in 2022. This is a much sooner timeline than a lot of these other SPACs that we've been looking at, especially in the space industry. What I really like about this is they're not going to a crazy extent in terms of their projections right now. And what I mean by that is right now they're valuing themselves at a $1.1 billion company. However, if we were to multiply some of these timetables, where again you have some of these companies trading at 40x, 80x sales, if you look at that 546 by 40, you're looking at a company that's trading at right at $21 billion. And they're not quite there yet, although I'd be interested to see, does that happen going forward? But so far, I'm not overly concerned about any of the financials, and they do look very promising. It is an investor presentation, and they always look promising. So what you're looking at now is, hey, we want to deliver on the money that we already have readily available. That is 2020. What you can see is for that new to where they can go out and get some of that easy money is $4 million. If the product is that good, I imagine $4 million should be relatively easy to grab, even from something as simple as pulling it from the government contracts that are readily available. You can then see some of these easy pulls to get all the way to this 114 million in the next 2 years, leveraging again those continued relationships. What that looks like from a financial perspective is, as we go through this process right here, again, these numbers may be a little small, I apologize for that, but what we're looking at here is these detailed breakdowns, not just overall revenue, but I like the detailed breakdown where we recognize these are our strengths. The 22 numbers are great. The 2025 numbers look excellent and exciting. So for that reason, I am seriously, if you can't hear the excitement in my voice, I'm seriously considering an early investment here because I like the capabilities of this company, as well as I like the fact that they are looking to trade at a favorable multiple, I would say. So there's a lot of important going on right here, although I do wish they had a little bit more profitability within the next 2 years. But again, we're all the way through 2020. We're in 2021. This is when they're raising money. They're not looking to backfill these past 2 years. This is when they're raising money to be able to complete some of these issues that they're looking to gain, and then they will have profitability next year. A lot of that is pretty exciting. So again, you can see right here, SPAC shares, founder shares, 25%. That's a big deal because it values the overall company as having the shareholders have an impact there. I also think that mitigates the risk of, again, if you offer future shares or another debt offering, then you're not necessarily just taking away from the public. And when you only have 10%, that's where it really hurts. Again, we were looking at going public at a $1.1 billion valuation, which is this number over here on the right-hand side. So we do have that cash readily available that they can utilize now. And again, the overall company, those employees will have some of the capabilities to basically go public. So this is the explanation for why they may be valued a certain way. And I think that really what you're going to see is it's going to be a mix of the two on the right-hand side. Again, people want to trade at the SpaceX multiples, the SPCE, the Virgin Galactic multiples. I think really they're going to be kind of a mix of these kind of more established companies, or an Iridium, I think, is a big one. And again, some of these high excitement analytics type of companies. So as you can see kind of what that looks like, again, not really trading here, but let's look at the 2021. Keep in mind that what we're looking at here is current numbers. This is also very important because we're matching apples to apples, where what we saw yesterday, again, we had one of those companies that was comparing their 2026 value to a company's 2024 value. And it's just, again, it's a little slimy in my opinion. But you can see right here that they've got some very exciting potential over the course of 2020 and 2021 compared to some of their peers. And this is again just revenue and gross profit expectations. You can see some of the compound annual growth rate that you see right here for the 2020 numbers through 2022. 128% is a huge number. And you see that happening with Black Sky all the way going to 2025 of right at 90%. You can see some of that on the gross margin perspective. These companies do have very, very high gross margins, which is very, very exciting. What that looks like from a valuation perspective is you see that Black Sky is very low valued compared to some of their peers. Because of that, this is why I think that there is a lot of potential. I don't want to look at this number right here because I frankly still am very heavy against Virgin Galactic. However, I think that this company could very easily trade at a 20 to 40x multiple, and you can see that there is a variety of companies in that same boat. And for that reason, I think that there's big advantages to being in that space. You can see Momentous right here. I think that the 20 to 40 is very reasonable for that number. Again, we're close to that approach. I think that there's a lot of value in looking at the transaction value because the overall company is actually going to be trading at these numbers. For that reason, I like the company, and I do anticipate making an investment as soon as tomorrow. So you'll see some of the capabilities here. And just to finish out the presentation, you've got some additional financial measures here. What I want to highlight is, again, you have the capability to go and look at this information. What I will do is leave it on the screen so that you have a look at this. But I'm going to be making an investment in this company most likely tomorrow, most likely for the long term. I may flip it once or twice. If you want to know when I'm making those moves, feel free to check out the Discord in the comments below. If you found this content helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. We just passed 1,000 subscribers, and we would welcome you to the family if you wanted to join and learn more about valuations and new companies, especially those coming through the SPAC route. So let me know if you found this helpful. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.